There are so many others like us. We just have to find them.
That's literally why we do this podcast, to find our other fishies.
Oh.
That's so
Hey guys, this is Agnibarna
And Maira.
Welcome to the Hidden Coconuts podcast,
The show that dives deep into the lives of us coconuts, brown on the outside, white on the inside.
or in other words, those of us who identify as both South Asian and North American, juggling two identities, contemplating how they coexist.
If you empathize, or you were just in the neighborhood, stick around and let's get cracking our inner coconuts. Alright, so today we have another amazing guest with us. It's Katie Leung, a second-year university student studying sociology, and also someone who is obsessed with retro games and stuff. But Katie, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
First of all, thanks for having me on this podcast. It's been an honor to be a huge part of something like this. My name's Katie Leung, and like Myra just said, I'm going into second year.
Our podcast is The Hidden Coconuts, and we talk about how the aspect of race, ethnicity, and just difference in cultural backgrounds has affected us growing up. You've mentioned that you come from an Asian household, you're Asian. So how has that shaped you? How close do you feel to your culture?
It's honestly been something I've just kind of been juggling with back and forth, just trying to understand it and like just embrace it, which it's always been a hard thing for me just to embrace my culture.
Do you think your relationship with your culture is the way it is today because of how you were exposed to it or how you learned about it growing up?
We weren't like super committed to traditions, but we were to some extent, and I guess we still are. Like since I'm Chinese, I really love Chinese food, but there are some things that I don't really feel.
Yeah, and it's all about
The
finding a
same-
healthy balance because while you are Chinese, you were born here. So you exposed to two cultures and two traditions. And as us coconuts or whatever you want to call us, it's all about finding a balance in between space where we can be both, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And that I feel like that balance is definitely like you definitely need to make it a healthy thing because you don't want to lean more towards something that you feel like you're not, first of all.
You kind of mentioned how you were wanting to be yourself, and that's something you realized growing up, like just being who you are and not caring about what others think. And I think that's such an important piece when it comes to different cultures too, because we want to feel like we're part of something bigger, but having this other culture to us, it makes us unique, but some people might perceive that as different. So it's just a matter of trying to embrace and wholeheartedly accept that having this extra background to you doesn't make you like
Weird, alienated, or
yeah.
like sometimes culture and like embracing our roots can be over glamorized, but it's okay to acknowledge that there are certain parts of these things that we like connect with, we love, we appreciate, and there are some stuff that kind of can be considered outdated. Like if we were to like take a generic example, since we have a lot of focus on the Indian subcontinent, there's a lot of practices and rituals in that area that many modern Gen Z students and people living there don't connect with or don't agree with, even those who are still living in that region. So just because you don't agree with it doesn't mean you're going to abandon the culture altogether. It's just picking and choosing and determining what matches and connects with your own morals and thought processes and mindset.
There's a lot of things that I've been hearing about that I personally don't agree with, and people still kind of practice to this day. But I mean, I don't know if it's something that should be respected. I mean, a lot of people my age would probably tend to like boycott it, but like for older generations, it would probably be seen as normal when it clearly isn't.
Yes, we can't change a whole culture's mindset, unfortunately. But I think it's just cool because there's people that believe certain things and others that don't believe those things. We get a whole variety within that culture.
So, Katie, I hear you're going into sociology. Anything that really sparked the idea of going into this field? Because what we've been talking about so far is like the conventional of what's considered normal or accepted. the accepted programs within our cultures. That's why we really want to know, what made you think of sociology?
So actually, it's something I haven't really figured out until maybe 2 years ago when I was taking an extra year of high school. So I took this course back in high school called Challenge and Change, and it really kind of exposed me to the outside world in a way that I haven't really viewed it before, I guess. And I definitely got a lot out of that class, and I really enjoyed it. It was probably one of my favorite classes I've ever taken at high school.
I can relate because I actually took that course too, and
Oh,
it
really?
really changed my perspective on things. Yeah, yeah. So I'm glad you enjoyed that.
hmm I feel like you just benefit more from like classes like that. Like there's more things you can learn in that class that are practical to your life than like, I don't know, say like a math class where you're just throwing a bunch of formulas in your face and I don't know, you just can't really apply that to daily life as much as like something that can help you open your eyes up a little bit too.
For sure, I totally get what you mean. And just based on the stigmas and taboos that are placed around our society, people don't realize how important courses like psych, sociology, or anything in the social science field, they can be so beneficial to understanding human nature and how a society functions and how people are as a group or individually, which is really beneficial to like everyday life and how we communicate with others. So the fact that people don't take it that way, rather they glamorize memorizing formulas and rules and stuff. So that kind of like creates a clash in human progress.
Yeah, like a lot of people just seem to emphasize things based off of like practicality and like how it can apply to like the working world and whatnot. I guess as opposed to like something that's more based around a person's character. Well, I don't know if you've heard the saying, a lot of people tend to focus on like EQ rather than IQ.
Is there any specific experience in your life or anything that you would like to share of your story that you think had a big impact on you?
The first thing that comes to mind is all the way back in elementary school.
So Aggie here, being a psych person as she had experiences like that too in like grade two, but it still has such a big impact on who people are today, even though it was like years back. Like that is a very important time in our growth and development. So just because it happened a long time ago doesn't mean it's irrelevant. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
And sometimes it can be like a really positive experience or it could be like a really negative experience.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and whether it's positive or negative, it's something our body went through. It, in a way, could be trauma for our body, and the lasting effects, kind of the scars of it, we bring on to adulthood, and any kind of triggers or anything kind of that provokes the nostalgia of that certain memory, it can affect us subconsciously or consciously, but usually the actions we display or the thoughts we have, there's like a huge subconscious prejudice behind what we do, whether we actually consciously believe it or not.
Yeah, and that's definitely true for sure.
You said you are Asian, so did you immigrate here or were you born here?
No, actually, I was born here and I've been living in the same place for my entire life so far.
Oh, cool. But your parents moved here, yeah?
Yeah, they both did.
So growing up, have you ever felt that because there's a difference in the environment you grew up compared to the environment your parents grew up, there were any kind of miscommunications or just even like within your environment, you kind of felt different from everyone else?
Well, I can't really say that I felt any different per se, but maybe I just felt that way and I just didn't notice because I was so young. But just looking back on it now, I can definitely say that there was a little bit of miscommunication in a way, but I think the fact that I was just born here made me feel like I needed to blend in with a lot of other people I was around at the time. Like, obviously, back in kindergarten, even then, like, I think I kind of had trouble making friends, but nothing too severe happened until like elementary school for me. Those years were some of the years where I was just bullied a lot by all these like random people. And as much as I tried not to let that get in the way of how I was thinking, like, I guess I was a bit of a sensitive person back then, and I still kind of am now. And I just took a lot of that stuff to heart, like other people would. Just looking back on it, I feel like I really shouldn't have let anything like that affect how I was thinking. Like I should have just been myself a lot more often.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm really sorry because I know that bullying is it's not a joke. It's not something you can easily get over. We learn from these experiences. You're taking sociology as well, so you probably know how these kind of interactions they shape who you think you are as a person. But I think you also highlighted a really good point. You said something about wishing to be who you were, like just being yourself. Am I correct when I say that?
I was being myself most of the time, but other people just weren't really comfortable with it.
I can relate because as human beings, it's our natural desire to want to belong. So sometimes we might do whatever it takes to belong.
And to a lot of people, I feel like conformity is just, it's kind of something that just pushed toward you, especially when you're that young. And you don't really realize until you're much older that you shouldn't really stick to everything that a person says, or you shouldn't really stick to everything that society says is right or wrong or whatever.
I really liked what you said about how at the time you were doing stuff and just being yourself when you were younger. And then when you got older, you realize a lot of things. And I can definitely relate to that because I wasn't born here. I immigrated here when I was around 6. And back then, in around 2008, schools weren't as diverse as they are now. So I was one brown girl in the middle of a bunch of white students. And I just felt alienated because of this huge difference in physicality, which I never experienced before. And I think in a way, I kind of thought of myself as weird because of that. And many times, maybe like at the beginning of each school year, I'd kind of mentally prepare myself and be like, okay, so what am I going to do this year that's not going to make me be weird? Or how can I prove to everyone that I'm not weird? And this kind of went on for years until I reached high school, I guess, when there was like more diversity and I met more people of the same skin tone as me. And after starting psychology, I really started to like analyze experiences in elementary school years back. And I was able to really debrief and be like, whoa, that was not right on either my part or on my teacher's part or my friend's part. So yeah, compared to like now, teachers were not as, I guess, accepting, or teachers were a lot more oblivious as to how to handle diversity and how to treat students of different races compared to what I see now.
That's kind of a depressing thing that it's only been happening a lot more recently. I mean, I'm glad that we're just moving forward. I think one of the first stories that comes to mind has to do with like me just being a little kid and being obsessed with random things that I happened to like at the time. And I still happen to like video games, and like a lot of nerdy stuff that I like now was actually Pokemon. And that was an obsession that sprung from daycare. I think I was just randomly given like a Pokemon card for some reason because maybe I was doing really good at this math worksheet or something. And I just got that as a prize or something. But I remember being really attached to it. And then I started watching the show and just going deeper into that. And then as soon as I got into elementary school, a lot of people noticed that I was into something that kind of referred to as like a boyish thing. I didn't really know too many girls who were into Pokemon as much as I was. This one day where I think I was like walking to class, and then one of the other girls in my class was like, "Hey, I know that you like Pokemon so much." And this happened in grade 1, by the way, but she was like, "I actually have this thing from my brother that he just gave me that I just want to get rid of." And then she showed me like this, I think it was like this little like Pokemon card case or something, or it was like some toy or something. But I remember really wanting it at the time because she said that she wanted to like give it to me specifically, but then she just changed her mind. I don't know if she saw me doing something weird or something, but since I was quote unquote misbehaving or something, she wanted to give it to someone else. And that person she actually gave it to happened to be someone who just bullied me a lot, like since the first day I entered that classroom.
So I guess what you're implying is that growing up, what made you feel hidden or alienated was the gender you identify as and kind of the stereotypes or like the expectations that come with it. Yet you felt
Mhm,
kind of out of the norm. You just wanted to be yourself, and that
mhm.
affected
I
how
just
people
wanted to be
perceived you.
unique. When I was 6, I'd much rather play with like, I don't know, like cars over like Barbies or something. So,
Has that affected who you are and how you identify today?
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I still identify as a girl, but I'm still kind of like questioning this other side of me who's maybe like, maybe you feel like you're not just a girl, but maybe something beyond that at the same time, if you know what I mean.
Of course. Who's to say like there's only one way to be a girl or one way to be like literally any human being?
Pokemon card does not equal being a boy, which I think kids need to wrap their head around because I don't know how they made that assumption, but somehow it has arisen.
Yeah, but I mean, again, things have changed a lot since then because by the time I was in grade 8, there were a lot more girls who were the same age as me when I was in that situation, like getting into Pokemon and all that. And just seeing that melted my heart. It's a good thing that we're only moving forward from that.
And I also think it has to do with the pond itself. So we're usually like a small fish in the pond. And if we're like the only type of fish in a small pond, we feel really alienated. But little do we know that out there in the big ocean, there are so many others like us. We just have to find them.
That's literally why we do this podcast, to find our other fishies.
Oh,
Mhm. That's so sweet.
I'm glad that you were able to find other people like that. Did you feel like your confidence with your likes and dislikes and just being you? Did you feel like you were more confident with all of that?
I mean, I did experience a little bit of that back in high school too, but it was more so me just being really opinionated and biased towards the things that I liked. Because sometimes I just get into like small little arguments with people who weren't even my friends about certain video games and whatnot. So
How do you think that's shaped who you are today? Like, how has those experiences and feeling kind of different from other people, how has it shaped the way you see other people or the way you value communication, friendship, any kind of relationship?
I think it has definitely shaped me for the better in a sense that I now know who can respect me. I guess I'm making like better choices about my friends. It's also a good thing for me, I guess, because I've definitely met a lot more people who have the same sorts of interests as me. Even though some of my closest friends, I guess, don't exactly have the same interests, but we can all like appreciate them, I guess, equally. And we all
D-
like to nerd out about what we're really into and like our obsessions and everything. And we all feel good about it. So it's great.
And I feel like a key part of relationships is not necessarily being the same. Like, you don't have to be the same age, gender, same culture, background. You don't have to be a coconut to like a coconut. Friendships can be with people that you're so different from, but it's just connected by this mutual understanding and this willingness to get to know each other, this openness to connect. So that's kind of what makes it so beautiful.
Have you
Yeah.
seen
And I'd
that
say that
Android commercial? Um,
Android commercial, which one?
there's an Android commercial with like a rock and a paper and a scissor. And the last line of the commercial is be together, but not the same. I think that really pertains to this conversation. And based on what you've just been saying, do you think all those events and interacting with these different kinds of people and having friends with different interests, do you think somehow that kind of influenced your decision to study sociology, that made you want to know about people, more about these norms that you really don't feel like you fit in yet? It's here, so might as well study about it and how we can like get through them.
Honestly, I haven't really thought about that until now, but I think I can say with a level of certainty that yes, it's definitely influenced my decision because again, like that's kind of one of the other reasons that I decided to like go into this major is because I'd like to know more about people in general and like people's behaviors, not on a scientific level, but more of like a social sciencey level, like different trends and different cultural patterns and whatever.
That's also an important part and the first initial step if you wanted to make change. We have to be aware of our surroundings, what's going on, what stuff means before we can actually do something and implement strategies to make it better. Like, if you wanted to make one change in society, it could be like something really out there that's not even possible, but like, what would you like to see differently in society?
Maybe just not sticking to like one thing the entire time and maybe just growing and exposing yourself, getting yourself out to like a different world where like people can appreciate you for doing things that maybe society might say is not okay, but you feel benefits yourself or something.
Yeah, like it's okay to be different. And if society accepted that, that would make things a lot easier.
Like just find something that works for yourself and not something that makes you feel uncomfortable on a daily basis, I guess.
And it's nice to be able to explore and do stuff without the hesitation of how others will perceive you, because at the end of the day, you're basically your harshest critic, and humiliation is a lot less scary than disappointing yourself. So, something you mentioned in your form was you want to discuss the impact nostalgia can have on you over the years. So, do you want to elaborate on that? Because I'm really interested in what you have to say.
So it's kind of been like a reoccurring thing in my mind for a while. Like whenever I'm just doing something or whenever I'm bored, I'll just keep having these endless flashbacks, whether they're happy or sometimes even like depressing times that have happened like throughout my childhood. And I'll just think about them and just reflect upon them and just be like, why did this happen? Or like, I'm glad that this happened and I'm glad I really like enjoyed myself in this moment. And I wish I could just relive all these things. And I guess it's been a lot more of a reoccurring thing, like ever since COVID first started and everything. And we were just in lockdown. And I guess talking with like other friends about all these kind of memories we had, like before everything went down, was kind of a thing that helped me push through that stress that was going through my mind at the time.
Especially in quarantine, it's kind of hard to make new memories. So that's pretty much all you have, the things from the past. And especially for the things that are good, like who wants to let go of those? It's so nice to look back at those times.
Yeah, and it definitely calmed me down when I was going through a lot of stress with online school and everything.
It's really nice to have like a different insight into stuff, and something we think one way, you'll think of in a completely different way, which is so refreshing.
Yeah, I'm enjoying myself too. Again, it's something that I've been wanting to do for a while, which is great.
Do you think after today you've built confidence and or you would like to take maybe another step or go towards that goal of having your own podcast someday?
I think I definitely would, and I feel like if I were to start my own podcast, which is something I'm still planning to do, just waiting for my co-host to like get back to me. I think I would definitely be a lot more open on it. I guess you'll hear my actual self a lot more often on that instead of my awkward self going on here for the first time. So,
Well, it's hard to be
yeah.
vulnerable, and that's great. I'm very happy that you're like into that.
You've reached the end of another episode of The Hidden Coconuts. Thanks for listening.
Be sure to check out our Instagram at The Hidden Coconuts for bloopers, more of our wandering thoughts, and a chance to be a guest on our show. We love to discuss and tackle everyday coconut quandaries, so stay tuned, and we'll see you on top of the coconut tree soon.